Everything that we're showing you today is current as of today. Again, the system is dynamic and constantly goes through changes and updates and modifications. The screenshots and things that we're showing you are related to the system as it is today, October the 3rd, 2023. Again, this webinar is really designed to talk about the technical aspects of the KReady system. If you have questions that are related to policy or practice, we'd like you to direct those to KRA help, but this webinar is really specific to the technical aspects of the KReady system. So let's talk a little bit about Closedown Steps. And I'd like to provide you with this checklist, if you will. The list contains all of those sections that you need to be thinking about and be considerate of as you're preparing to close down for this window. So we want to start on the left here with regards to student scores and data. It's important that you check the data to make sure that it's complete. We want you to view scores and other data, for example, using the KRA completion by item report to see that teachers have scores for all of the students that they are responsible for. So if there are missing items, please reach out and work with the school, work with the organization to try to get those scores completed. Next, we want to make sure that the teacher and student status is correct in the system. For instance, if the teacher information has changed, maybe there's a name change or an email needs to be updated, we want to make sure that that information is correct in the system. Likewise, with students may have transferred or moved away. We want to make sure that all of that information is updated in the system. So go in and check the status of both the teacher and the student as you go through your close down process. A special note here, however, please do not make students inactive until as close to the very end as possible. The reason for that is that if you make the student inactive, those scores will not appear. And if, for instance, they need to be there, then you have to go back in and reconnect that teacher and student and make that student active. We want to make sure that you do not make the student inactive until you know for sure that that student's scores should not appear in your reports. As it relates to enrollments, make sure that students are linked to teachers. When we get support requests, oftentimes we hear a teacher can't find their students. A student isn't showing up for a teacher, or we're unable to locate a student. Oftentimes it's because the student has not been linked. So we want to make sure that the enrollments are correct. The data collection token for this year is 2023 KRAR. We want to make sure that that is associated correctly with the students. Transfers, just a couple of points here regarding transfers. Approve any requests that have been initiated or initiating requests to another district if you have a student that has come to you. And you do that by adding the student again in the bulk loader. We have a couple of videos up on the support site that walk you through that process. If there are transfers out there waiting to be approved, that you go ahead and approve those. And if you have initiated a transfer, that you're checking to make sure that those have been approved. And if not, you're reaching out to the district so that the prior district so that you can get that approved in the system. That impacts the point of authority. We want to make sure that the point of authority is assigned correctly for those students. So again, we want you to confirm that that POA or the point of authority is with the correct location. These steps that we're giving you are kind of a methodical process, if you will, for going through and checking and making sure that the data is correct. All of these areas are up to date. It's important that all of this is done prior to 11:59 p.m. on November the 1st. Some of this may be impacted as it relates to administering the assessment by the first 20 days of instruction. Some locations may be completed already. That's okay. You still have time to go back in and get the data cleaned up. So as long as the window is open, as long as this is done prior to November the 1st, if you go in and download a report and you find missing scores or there is information that needs to be updated, you still have time to do that. We're encouraging you to go in and download all the desired reports from the system. The reason for that is this allows you to create an archive. If you should happen to have to go back and view any data from this year, if you need to do that next year, you're going to need to create an archive for that. And the way you do that is by downloading those reports. So we're encouraging you to go in, download those reports so that you've generated an archive. Finally, here, we want to encourage data managers that you have until 11:59 p.m. on November the 9th to complete your data cleanup. Talk a little bit about transfers. There are two types of transfers, internal and external. For the internal transfers, it's regarding transferring a student from one building to another in the same district. This is with existing students, so this is not about adding a new student, another student to the system. That's a completely different process. But if it's the same student that has already been added to the system and they move from one location to another, that's an internal transfer. All that needs to happen is upload student ID and enrollment file, and you'll be able to remove the student from the original teacher. Please note, internal transfers do not appear in the KReady system's transaction history for transfers. So even though you do go through this process, you will not see that because it's an internal transfer. That transfer will not appear in the transaction history. For external transfers, again, that's moving from one district to another district, one location to another. Students are loaded with the same student ID. When that happens, that triggers a transfer request to the previous district. In order to approve that, you'll need to go in, select transfers, and then approve or decline that request. So if you go into your transfers log and you see that there's been a request, you have the ability to approve or to decline that. You need to select the transfers section to monitor your request. So again, in the KReady system, you're going to want to go to, log in, go to administration, and select transfers to kind of monitor those requests, both those that need to be approved and those that you've initiated as well. The student data may be collected while a transfer request is pending, but the POA, the point of authority, will remain with the original district until that transfer is approved. So that's why it's important, if you have a student that is linked to your teachers and you need that district to approve the transfer, please be in communication with them so that that point of authority for that student will be with you and the scores will show up on your reports. Scores will be transferred once approved and the correct data token is assigned to the student. If a student moves out of state and is not connected with the KReady system any longer, you do not have to worry about transfers. You do not have to worry about the scores for that student.
So the first slide here, you're going to see three different reports. The first one is a data downloads report. And this report is going to show, depending on what you choose as your data that you're looking at, if you wanted to look at what your teachers, your students' enrollment files that have been uploaded into the KReady system, you pull that report. And this is more to help you confirm really what has been entered into the KReady system at this time during this window. And this can be pulled both during and after. All three of these that I'm going to go over right here on the slide is going to be able to be pulled, generated during and after. So the next one we have here is the KRA Student and Enrollment Report. And this really is a combination of your student and enrollment file. So it's going to show what students are attached to which teachers. So this just kind of confirms the connection of that student and teacher. The last one here is the KRA ISR Generation Report. And so this one is going to show you any ISRs that were generated by a teacher. So a specific teacher will come on one of your lines and it'll show how many ISRs were generated. Now, the next one we have here is the KRA Percentage Completion Report, the KRA Completion by Item, and then the Language and Literacy. And again, all three of these are able to be pulled both during and after the assessment window. So the KRA Percentage Completion Report, this is going to show you a percentage of all students who have completed the entire KRA. And this is used to monitor the completion progress of the student. the KRA completion by item report. And this will show you the teacher, what scores have been entered by the teacher for an item. So if an item was entered, a score was entered, you'd see an X for that specific item. So this is used more to monitor which items have been completed by each student and by which teachers. So you're looking for any blanks in a report like that specific report. The last one you have here is the language and literacy report. And this is used to monitor the language and literacy scores for each student. So, and this will show each of the scores, what the items were, and then the overall score. And again, all three of these you are able to generate both during and after the assessment. Now, the last one here, these two reports are only going to be available after the assessment window and after the data cleanup window. So the first one is the KRA scale score report. So this is what you are going to use to submit your scores for the students to EMIS. So this is going to show all student data, teacher data, all overall scores, and then, drilling down to that specific item level. And again, this is going to be available after the window, after the data cleanup window. So this is normally mid to end of November, and you will get a communication stating when that report will be available for you to download. The last one here is the KRA ISR report, and this is going to be an Excel file that'll have a PDF link for each of the students' ISR report. So this is, the ISRs are designed to be shared with families. Now, teachers also have the ability to do that for each of their students in their class. However, as a data manager, this would be something that if you wanted to, let's say, keep it in the office, however you wanted to use this report, this would be a specific, you could download the actual ISR for each of those students. So now what I'd like to do is let's go live and let's go over a couple of these reports to show you how to generate these. So when you log in and you select your administration, on that left-hand side, go to your reports. Now, the first one I want to show you that I think is very useful for data managers is going to be the KRA completion by item report. So this is a very helpful one to help you monitor what scores have been entered. So select your data collection. And what you see here is the location. And again, this is going to give you a specific location and more of drilling down. If you decide to choose district, this is going to show all of your buildings within a district. So we're going to just select the request teacher report. Once you do, you see the green down in the bottom left that it has been successfully requested. Select close. So it does take some time to process. Reports can take up to 4 hours to generate. If it is in queued status over 4 hours, you definitely want to reach out to the help desk and let us know. Give it a little bit of time. You can also refresh after a minute or so. And then once that populates, select download. When you open this up, you're going to see the list of your student, all your student information here, and then which teachers they're attached to. So as you can see, there are some scores that are missing. So we can see that this teacher, this is a new student, no scores have been entered. We're going to want to make sure we reach out to that teacher. And we're going to reach out to Casey here as well, because there's a couple scores that are not all entered. And we're seeing that. So this is where, as a data manager, that you want to kind of watch over and make sure all these scores get entered, because teachers have until 11:59 p.m. on November 1st to enter scores. Okay, so anything after that, scores cannot be entered. So this is your report now. You can do with what you want. You can, if you want to highlight certain areas, whatever you'd like. So we're just going to minimize that. We are going to go to the next one. The other report that I also feel is very helpful to a data manager is going to be that data downloads report. So if you select your drop down and go down to the very bottom, go to the data downloads, you're going to select your download type. So what students, if you want to look at what students have been entered, what teachers, or enrollments. Now, the one I want to show you, the reason being is because you want to make sure your transfers, point of authority, and the students are active. We're going to go ahead and select enrollments. And I will show you why here shortly. So we're going to select our data collection. You're going to select, if you decide to choose region, now this is going to provide a data manager with access to all of their districts. So if you have multiple districts, you can choose that. If you choose districts, now this is going to show specifically just locations. So if you have multiple locations. If you choose locations, this is going to show you just a specific building. It's going to drill down. So I'm going to just generate the location here and select. You don't have to fill in each one. So once you do that, hit close. And you can see it's in processing status currently. So again, you want to give it a little time. So after a minute or so, refresh your browser, refresh your screen, and then from there you can download. Now, like I said, this is going to show what students are tied to which teachers, and if you have the point of authority. So as you can see, it's going to just all of that student and teacher information. What we really are looking at are these last two columns, whether they're active and whether you have the point of authority. So active, a student is automatically active if they are attached to a teacher. So for instance, if this teacher information was empty and this was marked as a no, then yes, that is correct. And you realize, oh, well, I really want to make sure that I put candy corn attached to a teacher. So, you know, that's something you would go back into your KReady system and make sure you attach a teacher. Now, the other column here is the point of authority. And as you can see, all of these are marked as yes. So you do have the point of authority for these students, except for that top one. So if you're looking at this and you see that as a no, you still see the active as yes. If this is a no, that means that the transfer request that you generated when you added the student to the KReady system did not get accepted yet by the previous district. So in a case like this, you're going to want to reach out to that student's previous district and say, hey, I triggered a transfer request. And by triggering a transfer request, just by adding a student, by doing a student file upload, will trigger a transfer request. And you can do it multiple times. There's no end to how many times you want to do it. So let's say 1 week you trigger the transfer request and you see the point of authority still is no, you can trigger that transfer request again by doing a student file upload. It is up to the previous district to accept or decline though. So you can always reach out to them as well and give them a heads up. Hey, I triggered this. Can you accept it? Okay. So these two right here are, I feel, very important for data managers for monitoring the assessment. So that way you make sure your teachers are getting scores entered by that deadline and you have the point of authority for your students. And so all of these reports, like I say, are going to be selected right here. The ISR report, like we stated earlier, is not going to be able to be generated until after the window. Again, you're going to get a notification stating when those reports will be able to be generated, as well as that scaled score report. So those are the ones that you kind of want to concentrate on.
And so we'll start with the Ohio Department of Education site. Again, this is the location you want to go to for any kinds of questions related to policy and guidelines, as well as background and context regarding the assessment itself. Again, I want to highlight the KRA help email that you see there, krahelp@education.ohio.gov. And so we encourage you to use that, again, if you have those kinds of questions. If you go to the landing page and select under topics, go down to early learning. And once there, you can scroll down to school age and you can select Kindergarten Readiness Assessment under school age. And on the left-hand side, on the quick links, you'll see a link that says Kindergarten Readiness Assessment for Administrators. That's the link you want to click as a data manager. You'll see the information there in forms, gives you the timeline and all of the details that you need to know with regards to administering the assessment from a policy or practice perspective. There's some additional information about trainings and also information for teachers. So if your teachers are having questions or sending questions your way, you can also direct them to this site and they can select this section here for teachers. If your questions are related to a technical nature, we encourage you to go to the help desk site. Again, I want to highlight a couple of things. The first is the contact number there. You can phone 844-K12-OHIO or 844-512-6446. You can also submit a form, and I'll show you where to access that and how to do that. Some of the other resources that we have, there are how-to videos and support resource files there by role. At the very top, we've got an FAQ section that some of the questions that you might ask are answered here in the FAQs. So again, here's the FAQ section, and you'll see that the questions are sorted or organized by topic. So we'll go back to the main page here. Again, there's a calendar that gives you the dates and information. Also, we post our webinars on that calendar as well. As you know, the department sends out a newsletter with updates and information for you, really critical information. This is a location that you can come to, and we archive that information here as well. We're always going to show the 3 most recent messages so that it's as fresh as possible for you. If you click on Data Manager Support, we've got a few things that we think will be very helpful for you. The first is related to transfers here. We've been talking about transfers. There are a couple of videos here that walk you through. There's also a quick guide that walks you through that process as well. So there are a couple of ways that you can get the information and gives you the details about how to do that and where to do that in the system. And then also how to update users in the system and students. There's a support request form on the bottom of each page. So you can go to any of the pages on the help desk site. You will find a link to the support. Here at the bottom, you see the contact information, our hours, the phone numbers on the page as well. But this is the form that you're going to want to use if you have a support request. The reason for that is that you can provide detail here, and it also helps our team in responding quickly. Here, you're going to select your location. If you don't find your location, at the very bottom of the list, and you can do this by typing. You don't have to scroll through the whole list. So let's say I'm with Hawking. I can just start typing and then it will auto-locate. I can also type other. And when I do that, it goes to the very bottom of the screen. And if your location isn't listed, you can select other, and it gives you the option to fill that in. You can select which program and provide details. You can also even upload a screenshot. Fall collection opened on July 1. It will close on November 1, and you have until November 9 to get all of the data cleaned up. That's why we wanted to make sure we did this webinar early enough so that you had time to reach out and get those scores in for students and kind of get those transfers and things cleaned up. You've got time still, but we want to make sure that you are keenly aware of that date, 11:59 p.m. on November 1 for that.
There was a question regarding transfers. Does a student not appear on a user's list if they are still waiting for a transfer request? I have 2 students who I see in my transfers, but I do not see their names in their users, so in the students list. So yes, students do not appear on your list or on reports until you have the point of authority. However, they will show on a teacher's roster because you want to make sure while the transfer is in process that the teacher is still able to enter scores and the teacher would still be able to see that student. So you may not see that student in your students yet until that transfer, that point of authority goes through. At least on reports as well, they will not show on reports either. Another question on how do I clean up or remove access from administrators on their accounts. So if you are in your users and you need to remove either a teacher access or administrator access, that is something you as a data manager can do. However, you can't remove somebody who has the role of assessment data manager. That can only be done by the help desk. So you want to make sure you have updated OEDs. If there is a person that needs to be removed or added, then contact the help desk and let them know and they can update it. If you are looking for a specific teacher and you know they no longer work in your district, you can remove them and make them inactive and remove them completely from your district. So if you find your teacher and select open, you can simply make them inactive here, remove the role, and you can hit save. But you want to go a little bit close or a little bit further so they don't appear in your user. So if you go to your organizations, select the drop down, select districts. From here, you're going to remove them from your district. When you remove them here, then this teacher will no longer show. So if I type in their information, nothing is going to show. I have a student listed twice on a report. The one line shows yes or Y and Y, and the other one is showing Y and N. So this could be, or most likely is a transfer. So when you're seeing double students like that, and it's the exact same student, so you're going to want to check into this and make sure that you have the point of authority for that student. And so if the one line is saying yes, you can also do a double check by generating a report. And if you have the point of authority, that student would show on that report. On the enrollment report, one student who was transferred is showing twice. The other district has N in the last 2 columns, and my district has Y in the last 2 columns. So that how it should be showing, correct? So on this, actually, if this was a student that is now yours and you're showing Y and Y, then yes, that is correct. If the student has left you and you accepted the transfer from that previous from the new district, then at that point, what you can do, then it would be, if that's correct, then yes. But if you want to, at that point, after accepting the transfer, you can remove the teacher from the student. So then that student would also become inactive and that student wouldn't show on any reports. So if those last 2 columns are N and N, that means the student isn't attached to the teacher and that you don't have point of authority for.
Transfer question: who do you contact at a district and how do you get in touch with them? That information is contained in the transfer request. And so you identify the district first and foremost using OEDs. You can go into OEDs and do a search, find the district contact information to reach out to the district office, right? The Board of Education, the superintendent's office. Let them know who you are and that you are working with the Kindergarten Readiness Assessment, and you'd like to be put in touch with their assessment data manager regarding a transfer of a student.
We have a student that came to our district, their former district approved the transfer, but on the student profile under enrollments, The old district and our district are both showing. How do you remove the old district? You don't. That is just showing you that that student came from another district, and there's no way of removing that previous district. As long as you have the point of authority for that student, just know that that student will show on your reports. And if they're active and they're attached to their teacher, they will show on that teacher.
There's a question here that states, our district closed 2 schools from 2023-24. Do we remove them from the KReady portal? And if so, how do we remove them? If a school is removed, we validate and verify that through OEDS. And so that's where we get our information, and we're able to confirm that is the case. So all that information needs to take place there, and then our systems can be updated accordingly.
OEDS and the KReady system don't talk. If you update something in OEDS, that doesn't mean it's going to update in KReady. So you want to reach out to the help desk. We, of course, verify any information are not able to do anything in the KReady system unless it is in OEDS. So that is going to be your number one step. If there is a location that needs to be removed, honestly, I would wait until the end of the school year, because in case there was any reports generated or anything, you want to make sure that you still have access to that and can do anything. And we would remove those at the end of the actual school year, 2023, 2024. But again, reach out to us at the help desk and we can take a deeper look into that. And again, make sure you update OEDS first on that. When we are looking at our KRA completion by item report, we would expect all domain columns to be completed. Yes. So I have some students I have some students who have partial records. So yes, you want an X. If an X is going to indicate that a score has been entered for that item for that student. If there is a blank, then a score has not been entered. That's where you'd want to reach out to that teacher and make sure they have until 11:59 on November 1st to enter scores. So there is still a little time, but yes, you are right. If there's any blanks, you want to make sure that you address those with those teachers.